What's going on YouTube? This is BXBomber718 back at you with another video. And in this video, I'm doing a performance comparison between the Asus ROG Flow X13 against the Asus ROG Zephyrus G14. And both of these laptops are the 2022 editions. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do a performance matchup between the two, and you guys are going to be able to see that. And then afterwards, I'll give you my conclusions on both laptops, which one I like better than the other and why, and if one of them is going back or not. Stay tuned. All right, so we've opened up both laptops and we booted both up, and we went ahead and launched the Armory Crate software by Asus. This is a great performance monitoring and configuration application that Asus has designed for their Asus ROG line of laptops. They also have it for the TUF series or the TUF series as well. But some interesting observations that I've seen since they've been idling for about 10 to 12 minutes is that the temperatures is ranging from 53 to about 56, 57 degrees Celsius. Both laptops are in the performance profile. The MUX switch has been activated. The brightness is on 50%. The keyboard backlights have been turned off. Okay. Both panels are running at 120 hertz. The left laptop, which is the Asus ROG Flow X13, has a 1920 by 1200 resolution. And then we have our QHD plus resolution over here on our G14 on the right, okay? So the G14 has more pixels on the screen than what we're seeing here from the Asus ROG Flow X13. The Asus ROG Flow X13 also has a glossy screen, and then we have a matte screen on the right for the G14. Okay, some really interesting observations. Another thing that I noticed as an observation, when I have both unplugged and placed on the silent profile with the MUX switch deactivated, with the panel power saver on, with both running at 60 hertz, having both in the MS hybrid mode optimized, which means when the power has been disconnected, they both are running the iGPU, which is the same, which is the 680M. And when you plug them in, it switches over and it uses the DGPU, which on the left is the 3050 Ti by NVIDIA, and on the right is 6700S by Radeon or AMD. And that kicks into gear. But when they're in that silent mode and they're unplugged, I've noticed that the X13, it idles at a much lower temperature, about 5 degrees difference than the what we see on the right on the G14. However, when performance cranks up, the G14, it kind of handles that performance per watt for temperature much better than the X13. That's probably because of the vapor chamber that's been placed in there to accommodate for that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just wanted to let you guys see. So we have the MS hybrid mode on, meaning while it's plugged in, it's going to utilize the DGPU for any kind of graphics intensive tasks. Both are running at 120 hertz. Okay, the MUX switch has been activated for both. They've both been placed in the performance profile, and the brightness is at 50%, and the backlit keyboards are off. Now, I'm not going to run this in turbo mode because I don't think it's beneficial to do it in turbo mode, because turbo mode is just going to overheat everything, and it's not really going to run as smoothly as it can be. I think the sweet spot for it to be plugged in is the performance mode, and if you have it unplugged, to put it in the silent mode and deactivate the items that I just said in the configuration settings under system configuration. All right, so let's go ahead and run our performance benchmarks. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned. Okay, so the first test that we have opened and loaded is Cinebench R23. So we're going to run Cinebench R23 on both laptops, and we're going to see what score that we get. Remember, they both are using the same processor, the AMD Ryzen 9 6900HS. Okay, both have 8 cores, 16 threads at 3.3 gigahertz. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to run it, and we're going to see what scores we get. Stay tuned. Now, while Cinebench is running, this is the respective temperatures on both laptops. The Asus ROG Flow X13 is running at about 82, 83 degrees Celsius. And on the right, you'll see the Asus ROG Zephyrus G14 running about 80 to 83 degrees Celsius. So cooling wise, which is very interesting, the X13 is actually keeping up with the Zephyrus G14. There's like a 2-degree difference, which is not much, which goes to show that even though the X13 is slimmer, thinner, and lighter, it only has 2 heat pipes. It's actually keeping up with the vapor chamber and the 2 fans and 4 vents, because the X13 only has 3 vents, 2 for the GPU, 1 for the CPU. However, the G14 has 4 vents, exhaust vents, 2 for both the CPU and GPU. But I'm very astonished, I mean, to see the X13 in regards to temperature come with in the very, actually look, you just see the, oh, we jumped up to 86, 83, 82, and we've seen the Zephyrus G14 jump up, spike up a little bit too. So this is pretty fascinating to see how close neck to neck they are in regards to cooling. All right, and as we have completed the multi-core CPU test in Cinebench R23, the Asus ROG Flow X13 scored 12,095 points, and the Asus ROG Zephyrus G14 scored 12,312 points. All right, so the G14 wins in Cinebench R23 and their multi-core CPU stress tests. All right, so we can go ahead and run the single core test and see what we get. All right, and while the single core test is going, the X13 is at 78 degrees Celsius and the G14 is at 83 to 84 degrees Celsius. Very fascinating that at single core performance, the X13 is cooler than the G14. All right, so we just ran the Cinebench R23 single core CPU stress test on both the Asus ROG Flow X13 and the Asus ROG Zephyrus G14. The X13 scored 1,538 points, and the G14 scored 1,553 points. All right, so as you can see, not much of a difference in regards to single core and multi-core. It's about a couple hundred points difference between the two. However, we see that the G14 obviously has better cooling, slightly thicker chassis, vapor chamber, etc. And it has more wattage going to its CPU because it comes with a 240 watt PSU power brick, but the allotment in regards to wattage being injected into the CPU will be slightly higher on the G14 than on the X13. All right, so the next test we're running is the CPU Z bench CPU stress test. All right, not the stress CPU because that goes in the cycle, it loops, but the bench test for the CPU and CPU-Z. All right, let's get and run it. It's a fairly quick test. So in the CPU-Z test, the X13 scored 634.4 in the single thread test and 5,904.3 in the multi-thread test. The G14 scored 644.1 in the single thread test and 5945.4 in the multi-thread test. All right, so what we see is that the performance is still consistently better, in this case slightly so, with the G14 over the X13. All right, so let's go ahead and run another test. All right, so the next test is the Fermark GPU stress test. We're going to run the benchmark for the FHD of the Full HD 1080p preset. We're going to run that benchmark and see what they score. And this is to test the GPU or the DGPU in both computers. Here we go. So we wait for the fans to cool down some. And while we're waiting, just so you can see what's being reported by the Armory Crate, The max TDP for the X13 on the GPU is 40 watts, and the max TGP on the 6700S is 90 watts. But again, that can fluctuate because on the G14 you have the AMD advantage, which is smart shift, which means they can actually push up to 100 watts on there. And I think you can do a 45 watt max TDP also on the X13. I think you could shift some over to that as well if the CPU is not being stressed. All right, so now that the fans are down, let's go ahead and check out our scores. Okay, so over here we have 3,125 points with an average of 52 frames per second from the NVIDIA GeForce 3050 Ti on the X13. And then we have a score of 6,853 points with a 114 frames per second average on the 6700S, and that is by the AMD Radeon, all right, DGPU. So this is pretty fascinating. We see that there's a huge score difference between the two in regards to GPU, but I'm not surprised. The 6700S is in a different class altogether than a 3050 Ti. And also, given that is using anywhere from 90 to 100 watts TDP to something that is 35 to 45 watts TDP, it is not surprising to see this huge difference in performance. But I just wanted to give you guys that test so you can see how that plays out, okay? All right, after a 3D Mark demo benchmark test, here are the results. On the left is the Asus ROG Z13, and on the right is the Asus ROG Zephyrus G14. The Z13 with the NVIDIA GeForce 3050 Ti scored 4,500, and the G14 with the AMD Radeon 6700S scored 7,888. All right, and this is on the 3D Mark demo benchmark. All right, let's get one last test, and after this test, I'm gonna give my final thoughts, and we'll be done. All right, and for our final test, we're running Fermark Performance Test 10.2. This is the evaluation version, all right, on both computers, and we're gonna see what we get. As you can see down at the bottom, started off with 75 degrees on the CPU on the X13 and 69 degrees on the CPU on the G14. The GPU is not active yet on the G14, but it is active at 70 degrees Celsius on the X13. Let's go ahead and run the benchmark. All right, and there you have it. The pass mark rating for the X13 is 5,283, and the pass mark rating for the G14 is 5,998.8. Now, one caveat here that I did observe is that the 3D graphics mark on the X13 is 10,829.1, but it's 8,009.6 on the G14. All right, well, interestingly enough, I just double checked, and it's showing that it did record the Radeon RX 6700S and gave it a 3D graphics mark score of 8,009, and the 3050 Ti a 10,829. This is really interesting if this is accurate, because then that would mean the 3050 Ti scores better than the AMD Radeon 6700S. Well, something must be off, because the Fermark scores seem to be pretty accurate, as well as the 3D Mark scores, but for some reason the scoring here is a little off. But interesting. You got to run your tests and put your comments down below to compare and contrast to what I have received here. All right, in conclusion, I would like to say that these are two really good, fascinating, impressive laptops. Both have their strengths and weaknesses. I'm not going to be too lengthy on it from here. I just want to kind of sum things up. What we have with the X13 on the left is a very slim chassis. It's thin, it's light, and it's compact, right? It has a great processor, and it also has a DGPU, a 3050 Ti, if you do need an extra oomph for gaming, AutoCAD, 3D modeling, editing, video editing, etc. Right? However, on the right, you have the G14, which is slightly thicker, a bit heavier. And again, as far as footprint, they're about almost the same as far as the footprint. The X13 is a 13.4-inch screen, and you have a 14-inch screen on the right, both 16 by 10 aspect ratios. The X13 with a FHD plus screen, and on the right, a QHD plus screen for the G14. All right, the G14 also has Windows Hello with the IR camera at the top, whereas the X13 does not have that. They both do have fingerprint readers that is integrated into the power button. They both have the same, identical keyboards in regards to the font on them and their functionality, but in regards to typing, it feels like there's greater depth with the X13 than it is with the G14. However, keys are wider, right? So it feels comfortable both to type on. I'm not a fan of the huge trackpad on the G14. I actually prefer the one on the X13, even though it's a little bit smaller. It is wide. And again, I've had no problems though with both of them. I thought I would have issues with palm rejection and just typing on the G14, but that did not seem to be the case. As far as speakers, the G14 speakers are phenomenal. They have punch, kick. I heard good treble, good bass, but there is some distortion once you go over 80%. In regards to the X13, I didn't hear any distortion. Pretty decent speakers, but you don't get as much punch in the treble or bass like you do with the G14. Also, they both have the ergo lift design, which is the lid actually lifts up the base of chassis so that way air can get underneath. However, it's much more exaggerated in the G14 than it is in the X13. The X13 gives you that slight lift, and the G14 is a major lift, right? The difference is you'll have more give and more wobble side to side with the G14 because there's two smaller rubber feet on the bottom of the lid that is supposed to keep it grounded, but it doesn't have that bar, that rubber bar, that foot that's at the bottom of it. So therefore, it does slide around a little bit. You don't really have that much effect on the X13 unless you tilt it back all the way. Okay. Now I'm going to say this other thing that I've noticed on both laptops. Since I've set up the X13, I've had no problems, right? I had no lockups, no freezing, no glitches, no blue screens of death, no any of that. I cannot say the same thing about the G14. Since I've been using the G14, I've had 3 screen blackouts where the screen just glitched and blackout. And I moved the cursor, nothing happened, didn't see anything. The machine was on, it was running, but nothing happened. This happened to me 3 times. One time when I was in the Asus Armory Crate software, and the other 2 times was when I was running Chrome. I was watching Netflix and it happened. I was watching YouTube and it happened. But given at the same time when I was going on, there was some updates that was running, so that could have affected it. But once those updates completed and I rebooted, I have not seen those issues again. However, the G14, right before I started this video, did a VBIOS flash and then rebooted and did a BIOS flash. And when it rebooted back into Windows, I was able to get to the Windows Hello login screen, and then it blue screened of death on me. I was like, what is going on here? Did not know what that was about. That is very concerning. And on the X13, I had none of those problems. To note, both machines are highly responsive doing any task. I did not get no freezing, no lockups, or anything like that. I did have some weird issue with CPU-Z on the G14 where I would click to hold the window and I would just move it around and it would be very slow. There'd be a delay. It wouldn't happen with any other Windows, just CPU-Z. Maybe that just might be me. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that also occurs on the X13. I haven't tried it yet, but I did notice that on the G14, which I thought was very, very concerning. Also, you do have panel overdrive on the G14 where it lowers the greater gray response time to 3 milliseconds, which is great. That feature is not inherent or does not appear to be available where you can configure it on the X13. Okay. Again, the X13 has a gloss screen. You have a matte screen on your G14. All right. So overall, when I did my overviews of both machines after the unboxing, I told you the things I liked and the things I did not like. There seemed to have been more things that I disliked or was kind of like pet peeves or nitpicking with the G14 than the X13. In using them, I actually prefer the X13 over the G14, right? Based on the things that I've mentioned in the overviews. And if you don't know what that is, go back and check them out. So to be honest with you, I wanted to keep both, but I'm just going to keep the X13 and I will be returning the G14, unfortunately, right? However, for the duration of time that I have it, when this video goes up, if I still have it, if you have any comments, questions, anything like that that I can answer for you while I have the device or after I get rid of the device, and if I remember it or recall it, I will definitely answer it below. But please leave your comments. And if you also have these machines yourselves, leave comments below and let me know what your scores are, what your thoughts are, etc. All right. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Hit that thumbs up button if you like the video and share it everywhere. Peace.